Okay guys, so this is from worksheet 8.3 WSP. I want to do number 11. So I want to distribute m times m squared. You're going to get m to the third. Then distribute m times positive 4m. That's really going to be a plus 4m squared. Then you're going to go m times negative 8. That'll be a negative 8m. And then you're going to distribute a positive 5 times m squared. That'll be a positive 5m squared. However, instead of continuing writing to the side and getting something super huge, let me take this 5m squared and write it right below what I'm already going to combine it with. So I might as well write down the 5 times m squared, the 5m squared, write it right below the 4m squared. Okay? This is a way to write it organized as you go. That way when you combine like terms, it'll be really easy to do. So I already distributed 5 times m squared. Now let me go back and distribute 5 times positive 4m. That'll be a positive 20m. And of course, I'm going to write it right below the 8m because I want to combine the positive 20m with the negative 8m. And last but not least, positive 5 times negative 8 is negative 40. And obviously there is no other numbers without variables. So I'm just going to write that minus 40 at the end. And now it's really easy to combine like terms because I already lined them up. Right? I already lined them up. So when I think of the m to the third, that's my very first term. And then 4 plus 5 is 9 with an m squared. And then the next one, negative 8 plus 20, that's going to be a positive 12m. And at the very end, a minus 40. And that's your answer, right? If I asked you a couple of vocab questions like, what is the constant of your answer? What's the constant? What's the constant? The constant is negative 40. You have to include the sign. What if I asked you, what's the leading coefficient? 1. There's an invisible 1 in front. Okay? If I asked you, what's the degree? The degree is the highest exponent, 3. Is this in standard form? Absolutely. Let's jump down to number 14 here. Let's try to do it. So you're not always going to be able to line these up. Sometimes you end up with different terms. So let's see how number 14 works. When I go 3d times 2d to the second, 3 times 2 is 6, and d times d squared is d to the third. And then 3d times 5d, that's going to be plus 15d squared. And then 3d times negative 2, that's going to be a negative 6d. So we've already distributed the 3d. Now let's distribute the other term, the positive 3. I like to circle what I'm going to distribute. Positive 3 times 2d, that'll be a positive 6d squared. So I could write it right here, plus 6d squared. Or I might as well write it down here below the other d squared since I know I'm going to combine that later. So I'm going to write it down there below the other d squared term. So 6d squared, positive 6d squared, right below the 15d squared. And then positive 3 times positive 5d, that's positive 15d. And I'm going to write it below the other d term, below the minus 6d in red. And last but not least, positive 3 times negative 2, that's negative 6. That's the constant at the very end that you don't really combine it with anything. So as you rewrite your final answer in standard form, 6d to the third plus 21d squared plus, what is that, 9d minus 6 at the very end. That's your final answer right there. Your leading coefficient is 6. Your constant is negative 6. The degree is 3. If I asked you to classify it, it would be a cubic 1, 2, 3, 4 polynomial. Cubic polynomial. Just reviewing. You're going to have to be able to classify on Friday's quiz also. So jumping to number 15, we need to distribute the binomial with the trinomial. So what we're going to do is just distribute one at a time. I want to take the 3q and distribute 3q times 9q squared. 3 times 9 is 27. Q times q squared is q to the third power. And then when you go 3q times negative 12q, that's going to be a negative, 3 times negative 12 is negative 36 q to the second power. And last but not least, 3q times 4, that's going to be positive 12q. Do we understand that? So we have distributed the 3q. Now let's go back and distribute the 2. 2 times 9q, I'm distributing a positive 2 here. Positive 2 times 9q, that's positive 18q squared. So you could write it right here, positive 18q squared. However, you're going to have to combine like terms with the other q squared. So you might as well write it. Hey guys, cut it out, please. You might as well combine the 18q squared with the other q squared. So I'm not going to combine it yet, but I might as well write it right next to it. Positive 18q, fix that, q squared right there. And when you go 2 times negative 12q, that'll be negative 24. And you might as well write the negative 24q underneath the other positive 12q. And last but not least, we're going to distribute the positive 2 times positive 4. That's going to be a positive 8. And of course, you're not going to combine that with anything. So notice that I wrote my distribution of 2 down here lined up. Q squared on top of q squared, q on top of q. That way I could just combine the terms that are alike. So the first term on your standard form answer will be 27q to the third. And then the next one is going to be a negative 18q squared. And the last one will be a negative 12q and then plus 8 at the very end. This is your final standard form cubic polynomial answer. Leading coefficients 27, constants 8. The degree is 3. Okay, so there's only one other thing that's slightly more challenging than distributing a binomial into a trinomial. That would be a trinomial into a trinomial. Now, honestly, I think it's a waste of time. It's kind of ridiculous. So I'm not going to put this on the test Friday. It's just a lot of work. If you know how to do a binomial into a trinomial, then a trinomial times a trinomial is you should be able to do that also. So I'm not going to actually test you on the trinomial times a trinomial. But the way to do it would be 3y squared times this one, 3y squared times that one, 3y squared times that one. And then you move on to your next term, 2y times this one, 2y times that one, 2y times that one. And then you would switch to your final one. Let me go with a different color here. Let's go with purple. You'd go positive 2 times this guy, positive 2 times this guy, positive 2 times that guy. So you'd just be distributing one term at a time. You get a bunch of terms, you combine like terms. I'm not going to ask you to do that on the test, even though it's the same thing as what we've been doing before. Now, some of us are asking, what about word problems or like with shapes? Right here it says, write an expression to represent the area of each figure. At the very least, let's do number 21. They want us to write the area of this triangle. In order for us to write the area of a triangle, we need to know the area formula of a triangle. And the area formula is A equals, does anybody know? 1/2 base times height. Or base times height divided by 2. They're both the same thing. So if you want, go ahead and put base times height divided by 2. Or 1/2 base times height. So what is the base of this triangle? It's exactly 4x plus 2. What's the height of this triangle? 2x minus 2. So what they want us to do is to multiply the base times the height and then divide it by 2. So that's exactly what I want to do. I want to multiply the base times the height and then divide it by 2. So 2x minus 2 times 4x plus 2, that's the base times the height, And then at the very end, we're going to divide it all by 2. So let's distribute. What's 2x times 4x? That's 8x squared. What is 2x times 2? That's positive 4x. And then let's distribute the negative 2 times positive 4x. That'll be a negative 8x. And then negative 2 times positive 2, that's negative 4. So up on top, we have all that, and on the bottom we have the divided by 2. So up on top, we could still combine the middle terms. We could combine the x's with the x's. So the negative 4x plus 8x, we could actually do that, and we're going to get negative 4x. If you have $4 but you owe $8, you're still going to owe 4 of those dollars. And of course, the first term is still 8x squared, and the last term is still minus 4. But the thing is, it's all divided by 2. Now, this is a quadratic trinomial that is divisible by 2. Each and every term, this first term's divisible by 2, this one's divisible by 2, this one's divisible by 2. So you could actually split up the denominator of 2 to each of those. So you would have 8x squared over 2 minus 4x over 2 minus 4 over 2. If you split up the denominator, you'll be able to reduce each and every one of those fractions. This becomes the final answer 4x squared. This becomes the final answer minus 2x. This becomes the final answer 2, minus 2. So there's your final answer for the area of this triangle. 4x squared minus 2x minus 2.